That's a great picture.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. We are back with our first installment, and it's a crossover episode, Friends of Madison Fantasy and Fantasy PD. So, Fantasy PD hosts Nick and Peter and Dan. Don't worry, he'll be back on the podcast. We can't go another week without hearing his takes. But Andrew Berg, welcome to the call. It is good to be here. It's good to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be back for another season.
This could be the year, Berg.
It will be.
Okay, I like that. And Nick, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. We're all on Wisconsin time. Our other host, Dan Miller, is on England time already. He's prepped it this weekend. That's why he was up so late till 5 in the morning on Sunday.
Well, I guess if you do the math there, that'd be like being up till 11 a.m. So who knows
There
when
you
he's
go.
done sleeping when he's across the pond. But Berg, I know we're going to jump right into things here as we recap a beautiful weekend. We look forward to another eventful season. We talk about some of the good and the bad and the ugly of the 2024 draft that occurred in downtown Philadelphia, which I'm excited to hear any of the stories I have not already heard, but from the bingo card, I could get a pretty good piecemeal together of what did go down. So, Berg, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. And the draft actually did not happen in Philadelphia. It happened in New Jersey.
Wow.
You got to take this
That is true.
beautiful Betsy Ross Bridge inspected by our very own Shaw to get there.
Never felt safer.
All
All
right.
right.
Power rankings. Let's go.
Yeah, not much of a
Can you-
surprise here. I already released these power rankings, but I did notice some tiers as I was grouping them. So there was a pretty big drop off after the first spot, I thought. But then there were a few teams I thought were all pretty comparable. You could move any of these teams around, I think, anywhere from Cole to Peter here. Any of them I could see finishing second this year. And then Chris and Nick, the teams are okay, not bad. And then there's the last category of the people who clearly were not prepared for the draft. Met Nick after looking at his team a little more. I think it's better than I originally thought. I'd maybe move it into the okay tier with Nick and Chris.
Now, what makes you the clear favorite? In a succinct one sentence, why are you just the far and away better?
I was the only team that picked the best player with every pick.
Hmm. Well said.
Thank you.
Good
Should we move
news.
on to Nick's rankings, or does anyone have any more thoughts
Let's
on
talk
that?
just one more LOL. What stuck out to you about LOL?
About LOL?
Yeah.
League of Legends.
Exactly. No, those were just some rosters that made me chuckle.
Anyone in particular?
I mean, you can start with Hebert at the bottom, having no good running backs on his entire roster, and not a lot else to even trade to get a running back. He's got Deontay Johnson though.
It'll be interesting to see how he navigates it. So, Berg, I appreciate you putting yourself out there, releasing power rankings, always unbiased, always based off of facts and numbers and previous finishes in this league. So it is good to see. That's good
Yeah.
content.
Thanks, Pete. All right, here's Nick's power rankings. Nick, you want to tell us what you thought?
Yeah. I gave a little bit of an extra information around my tiers. Yeah, because there's about four or five here. Two top teams. I love Peter's draft, and he had the best keeper with Kyron. And then I really loved what Toy did, and he scooped me a couple times on guys that I really wanted. So that really hurt. But good for him getting those guys. So I see him as a top team. I texted him individually this week saying, "Hey, I think you're a top team. You're one of my favorites." And he said he doesn't like having the extra expectation. So we'll see how he handles having that pressure on him this season. The next two I actually have are only high because of their keepers and having CMC. So putting that in the Milk and Matt Nick as the next best tier. I like you said, Matt Nick got a lot of hate, but his team looks good, and a lot of it revolves around having the second best running back at the end of the second round. Milk, same story. He held true to not drafting someone younger than 26 or 27 unless they were a Packer, because I'm not convinced he knows anyone. All random names to him at that point. My next tier is the average, had a good draft. Berg, Chris, Nick, what was given to them, they took. They didn't play out of their comfort zone. Um, Berg and Chris are a little bit higher up in this tier because of their keepers compared to mine. But I think all three of us are good managers, and we have the tools to get to the top. I got my high variance teams as Jake and Colden in the next one. I didn't love their draft, but I do think that they have players that could win them this league, maybe even more so than the tier above them. But I also could see both of them easily coming in last. And then I have a very similar tier to you as the bad tier. Um, I don't want to say anything mean about Shaw because he'll probably hurt me. Dan, I can defend myself against for a little bit, and Hebert is more of the lull category where I just feel bad that I want him to do well, and he's a great guy, but he had a tough draft in my opinion.
For as much as he knows about football and statistics and research, he just fantasy football doesn't click for whatever reason.
Neither does acting appropriately.
Who do you think is going to make the first trade of the year? Outside of the one that I already did.
Dan.
Oh, draft picks. Yeah.
Dan has been I've got boots on the ground that as my Adar Schefter that Dan is wheeling and dealing right now.
What does his team need?
A running back.
Hmm.
He's not the only team though.
Yeah,
that's a good point. I'm one of them.
That is fair.
I will say you guys both, I believe, had Milk ranked higher than I did. And part of he didn't start. He had a very good advantage in the draft, I would say, of having Puka and CMC to start. Yeah, because after that, it just all old players.
I didn't like his draft for the rest of the reason, but you saw like Chris's what was he like 7-1 or something like that because CMC's putting up 40 burgers. Like that alone is such an advantage that his team is high.
He drafted Lamar Jackson and Kelsey, which I thought were great picks because he already had that good foundation. But then he also drafted Tua and Cole Kmet, backups for positions that he's never going to use one time. He just wasted two somewhat early picks in the end of the draft.
He doesn't know players beyond like the 8th round. So every single draft, I'm in technically three leagues with him each year. And he always picks a second quarterback. And then he always picks Cole Kmet last because he met him at a bar once.
I didn't know that nugget. Thank you.
I mean, how could you not at that point?
It's like if Will was in the pool, you know who's drafting him early. It's one of us.
I met Patrick Mahomes at a bar recently, and I didn't pick him.
That was cool. One in a lifetime chance. He dapped you up and everything.
Yeah.
Kissed you. He kissed you.
Wow.
He might have.
He might have.
Pete, any thoughts on Nick's rankings, or would you like me to move on to yours?
No, I think I have pretty similar rankings here. So if we cruise along, my tiers, obviously, I think, Milk and I got somewhat lucky. We had good keepers, and then we got lucky. Obviously, I had the 2 pick, and then Milk had the 1 pick, so he's very high. The other pick that I really did like from Milk was Amari Cooper. I thought he got good value on Cooper where he did. That was a good pickup. It would have been interesting to see if he also grabbed T. Higgins at that spot as well, Cooper Higgins. I would have really liked that for his wide receivers. I could see him thinning out at wide receiver pretty quickly. I believe he selected Lamar Jackson at that time, which is a fantastic pick as well. Berg, you had my 2 favorite picks of the draft, to which when I texted you that, you said you texted a bunch of picks, and I said, no, it was none of those. You said, wow, I didn't realize I had so many good picks. But I did not initially like your Jonathan Taylor pick. I think he was a safe pick, but his ceiling is interesting. He doesn't have the capacity in my mind to be a top 3 running back this year, but he'll be like the 7 with Anthony Richardson. Like he'll be an RB1. But then when you selected Debo, my dream start was to go, which is why I traded out of the first, because I knew Nick would take him out of the 6th pick, was to go at that draft. One of the wide receivers are Bijan plus Debo plus Kupp. That was my dream start. And when you took him where you did, I thought that was a very good pick. And then I thought you got very good value at Kenneth Walker. That was who I was debating with in the 3rd. And then I'm not going to go team by team, but I will at this point start with that with Matt Nick. It's easy to say I had the best keeper or Milk had the best keeper, But I think when you look at it, he had the best keeper because of getting a top, potentially, arguably, could be the best fantasy player this year. It's what Shaw had last year when he had AJ Brown and got to keep him. So if you flip the first round picks and you say he took Brees at 4 and then or 5, and then he took AJ Brown in the second, you'd be like, wow, that's a fantastic start to the draft. But because it was the 1-2, it's different. Will he regret not going Bijan Robinson, Jamar Chase, and making that trade with Dan early on in the season? Maybe, maybe not. Does Chase play early on in the season? Apparently, he's holding out because of a contract. The middle tier, I think there's going to be a lot of movement here. Obviously, I like all these teams. I think, tier 4, I'll kind of jump around at this point, but I just need Cole to realize, and hey, he could be the wide receiver 1 this year, but I think 2 rounds later, he might have been able to get Terry McLaurin. I did like Cole's draft. I thought he drafted pretty well. I think that his draft will be a lot better than it went last year. But Scary Terry off the board. It's funny how we all have our players and we all go back to them. Tier 5, we already talked about it. So if we zero in on tier 3, Toy's pick of Isaiah Pacheco was fantastic. I thought he might drop to me in the second. Chris, I know he has a little bit of remorse from I'm Ian Rap Sheet because you're a darn Schefter. So he has a little remorse from taking Christian Kirk, but I think he's going to be a great player. They let Ridley walk. They gave Kirk money. He's going to play well. Nick, I like Amon in the first. I think it was interesting. I have a question for you, Nick. If you knew the draft would go as it did, would you have maintained your keeper of Amon knowing you could have gotten Bijan there?
Yeah, I know. I think someone asked me that too, and it's Bijan and Amon were my 3 and 4, like those two, and I didn't really have an answer because I probably, if how this draft went out, I would rather have Bijan because I've got Higgins on my bench. But I think still Amon Ra is the better player. So overall, no. But for my team construction this year, yes, I would rather have Bijan.
Yeah. And I think Jake had a good draft. He obviously also lucked out. Here's the thing, I looked at Jake's roster. If Dan selected who he wanted in Jalen Hurts over Patrick Mahomes when he accidentally just mixed up those two names because they're really close, he got Jalen Hurts who just fell in his lap. His team with Patrick Mahomes looks a little bit different. So he got lucked out. I hope Jake has better luck with his first 2-round picks this year than he had last year, having Nick Chubb with a back of Garrett Wilson. Obviously, injury play and unfortunate. So those are my rankings, subject to change. We'll see who gets crafty on the waiver wire. Obviously, there were some early pickups last year that changed the landscape. Berg picking up Puka, myself picking up Kyron. So we'll see what happens. I think my favorite pick that I made of the draft was when I drafted Lad McConkey, to which Matt Nick said Lad McCock who. And, it just goes to show the level of preparation that he had heading into that draft. And also, it'll be fun to really watch where Trey Benson falls within running back 1 to 12 this year because he is this league's darling.
He's hot.
Yeah.
Running back for the Atlanta Falcons. Nice pick, Dan.
Isn't he on the Cardinals?
No, that's
Yeah,
what
Dan thought he was
we
on the
asked Dan what
Falcons.
team
Dan
he
was
was.
on the Falcons.
Yes.
You got Bijan's backup. Ooh.
Here's the average of the rankings. Peter, you're tied for first with Milk. I'm just slightly behind, and there was a unanimous last place in Hebert. I think the one that was the biggest variance of all was Cole. I had him second overall. You guys both had him round 8 through 10, I think.
That was the tier I had him in. High variance. I don't know where to put him right now. He's got Achan, he's got Anthony Richardson. Like these are guys that could be the number 1 player in fantasy, or they could be out in 2 weeks.
That's what I saw on Cole's team too. If we're looking at a team that could win the league, Cole's I think is maybe
absolutely
number 1 after me. And but it could be last as well. I could see both. Yeah. And I think people are forgetting Achan too is as good of a keeper as anyone else because he was only ranked a few spots below Puka Kyren. So also a 6th-round pick, and Cole got equal value there. And I think picking at 12, he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I agree.
It'll be interesting because he decided to take Wilson at 12 and Gibbs at 13. And I'm pretty 50-50 on which I would have done from a keeper perspective.
That's a tough one. Yeah. I think Gibbs has a better chance to be like that number 1 overall guy next year rather than than Garrett
Yeah,
Wilson.
if
So
CMC goes down or something like that, and Gibbs is the guy and Montgomery fades, like Gibbs could easily be a top 2 to 3 pick, like just where Brees was this year. So I
Exactly.
agree. I think Gibbs might be the one.
Mhm.
smart picking Cole. All right.
Ooh, hot
Oh,
takes.
Time.
nice transition.
Well,
That
thank
was
you.
really good, Berg. You've been working in the off season.
I put this together in 15 minutes today during my lunch break.
Now that's a good looking photo. All right, who wants to? Do you want me to kick us off?
Sure. Let's hear your hot take, Pete.
All right, here's my hot take. I got to set the scene here. So I think sometimes I come out of these and I feel often I end up getting yelled at by Jake in the group chat. And I might for this one as well because it has to do with Jake. But if we go back to 2023 and we rank the top 3 blunders, from my opinion, that were preseason. So this is including draft and this is including trades that were made. Ooh, I just thought of another one that's also maybe tied up there. So I'm going to go top 4. So number 1 blunder is Pete and Cole passing on Tyreek Hill and taking Travis Kelce and taking Austin Eckler at 4 and 5, and Tyreek Hill going 6. Number 2, I had Hebert trading Stephon Diggs for Tony Pollard right after the draft. Interesting trade. Pollard was obviously highly touted. It's kind of like somebody being all in on Drake London this year. Is he going to be good? I would imagine. But is he proven? I wouldn't say so. So who is he going to be? So he got really good. You got really good value on that. The other one that I just thought of is Nick trading out of getting CMC. That is a big blunder that happened last year.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I had written down was Dan going running back, running back, running back. Where if he made that trade with Matt Nick this year, he would have gone running back, and who knows what he would have done in the third. I imagine wide receiver. So we have blunders this year. Is a top 3 or 4 blunder from this draft, fact or fiction? And I'm going to say fact, but I'd like to hear your 2 opinions on this. Jake decided to keep Michael Pittman Jr. in the 6th round, who I'll give maybe at beginning of the 4th, end of the 3rd round draft pick. He also had Isaiah Pacheco on his team, and that would have been a 4th round keeper. He was drafted in the 5th round. Will Jake end up as a top 4 or top 3 blunder this next season because of the difference in keeper that he decided to choose? Fact or fiction?
Yeah, Berg, you got a answer on this one?
Uh, I will say fact. I think difference between Pacheco and Pittman's big enough. I'd have to see though who we got in the 4th or could have gotten in the 6th to really know though. That's a tough one.
So Jake went CD in the 1st, and he took Laporta in the 2nd. And Pacheco went before Nick. There was a dead pick or 2 dead picks in front of him with Matt Nick and.
So he knew he was taking a receiver then at the 3 spot. So he was starting receiver. He could have been more balanced already if he had just started with Pacheco.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a fact. I didn't realize Pacheco could be saved as a 4th runner instead of 3rd rounder. I thought that he should have taken Pacheco even as a 3rd rounder. Like that's how much better he is as an asset. And I don't think that there's going to be a bigger blunder. The only other one, which it would be no egg on his face for not doing it, but Milk with Laporta as a 6th rounder. It'll be interesting to see how his team would look if if Laporta ends up being the tight end 1 and Puka struggles or Cup takes over in that team again. So, but that wouldn't be on him because I feel like those were however you felt one way or the other right now.
I think with Milks, he got Kelce in the 2nd round, or maybe it started 3rd, whichever it was, and who I think is the same as Laporta. So he essentially got him anyways, and he was able to make that decision rather than and still have Puka because Puka wouldn't have been available in that spot.
I agree.
Next take.
2 facts on my hot take.
You want me to go, Berg?
Yeah, go for it.
So I have a non-fantasy manager related one and more of a player one. So in our league, the number 1 quarterback drafted was Josh Allen. The number 1 running back was CMC. Number 1 wide receiver was Tyreek Hill. And then the number 1 tight end was Sam Laporta. I don't believe any of them will finish number 1 overall this year. I think all 4 of them will get passed up by someone else. And I feel like all 4 of, well, maybe the first 3, Allen, CMC, and Hill have a decent advantage above, but I could see all of them falling behind a little bit this year and not returning that value.
I think with Josh Allen, you're definitely right. I think he's good, but lost a lot, and there's just so many quarterbacks that aren't too far behind him that I
Yeah.
would not. I'd be surprised if he didn't finish number one again. McCaffrey, it's more just the injury thing. If he stays healthy all year, I'd be surprised if
Yeah.
he wasn't the number one running back again. But staying
Mhm.
healthy all year
No
is
one has finished, I
biggest
think, the
question.
number one pick overall again the next year as well after. So I think it's like 5 or 6 years running where every single time you were the first overall pick and then or the first or the best fantasy asset, they always fall back, whether it is injury or something else happens. So I'll just
Todd
lump him in
Gurley,
there. Yeah, we
but
need
that
it.
was
If Milk's
those
gonna
years ago.
blunder, we need it.
You have anyone that you feel like in those categories, Nick, that you are like, this is the tight end I think is going to finish one, or this is the quarterback I think I'm going to finish one.
Yeah, tight end's funky. There's like 4 or 5 guys. So that's why it's like that's where it almost ended up like Sam Laporta was drafted in the second, and I don't know, like Kincaid was drafted in the sixth. Like you could have switched those two, and I feel like they're probably very similar in output. Laporta just had a lot of touchdowns last year that who knows if they go a throw or two to Gibbs or something, his team looks a lot different. And wide receiver is always competitive, especially CD if CD plays, Jamar Chase plays, you never know. Running back, again, we've talked injuries and stuff, and then quarterback, yeah. I don't know if I'm a huge Josh Allen believer, so there is the Hurts, Mahomes, Richardson, maybe Kyler Murray tier that could be number one.
Yeah, I like that take a lot. I think it'll be. I would have to look at it. I think Tyreek could definitely not finish as the one. I think he was the safest pick there. CD, I think CD could easily be the one. Toss those up, but it's hard to pass him up. Drafting at 2.
Mhm.
Josh Allen is my hot take, and on your hot take is Josh Allen for me is the one that has the best chance of those to finish as the number one. I don't think his
Oh,
lack of weapons next year, he lost Diggs, which Diggs' second half of the year was not good. And then you lost Gabe Davis, who, was a home run shot. I think he's going to be required to run more. And I think it's going to actually be an advantage as a function of that to score more touchdowns with his legs. So I think that pick is a slam dunk. I was hoping that one of those, him or Hurts, would fall to me, but then the run of quarterbacks went right before me. It went literally Allen, Mahomes, Hurts right in front of me.
yeah. Yeah, they all fell too. Was that the fourth round, right?
Um,
Quarterbacks went late in our draft, I
Yeah, it
feel
was the
like.
fourth
They've been the
round.
fourth.
They went later than like last year they went pretty early. Well, actually we had a lot of keeper quarterbacks last year, which made us all kind of I wanted to draft someone earlier even on top of that because there
Mhm.
weren't as many. But this year, yeah, you could wait on a quarterback and get a good one.
Yeah, I love it. It's a good take.
All right,
All right, I might have the hottest take of all.
Berg
It's
doesn't win the league.
that's very
That's spicy.
yeah. That would be a very hot take to say that. But I was looking at the teams, and there's some pretty bad managers in this league, obviously. And one manager has been worse than all the managers and has never made the playoffs in this league. He's in this call right now, Nick Clement. I think he could make the playoffs this year. That's my hot take. I
Whoa.
I analyzed it. So I'm already in the playoffs pretty much. So there's 5 spots left. There's 4 teams though that I put at the bottom. Those people who didn't even prepare for the draft in the slightest. They're not making the playoffs this year. So that leaves 7 spots for just 5 guys. Nick's on the bottom of those 7, but like we're talking about with Cole's team and Jake's team as well, they're pretty high variance teams. So one of those might bust, one booms. I could see Nick slipping in as the 6th seed and probably losing in the first round. But that's my
I'd
hot
take
take
that.
is the worst manager in this league
That
makes the
means
playoffs this year.
Remember, that means Nick's scoring a lot of points.
That was the
6
5
seed.
seed. Yeah.
Okay, 5 seed. Wow. You don't think he's
Wow.
going to get points? You think he's going to get more wins?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the spiciest take. I don't think you've ever said something positive about me in fantasy
Wow.
football.
It's less
Fantasy
positive
baseball,
about
maybe.
you and more negative about the others.
I would love to see a
Truth.
Nick Berg matchup in the playoffs. I think it would be spicy. I think the team. I think the league needs it. I'd also like to see Jordan make some good moves this year. I mean, he made his moves last year for Tyreek and all the other teams when he did it at the end of the season. So when he was already out of it more or less. So I'm excited to see, I think you two duke it out and find yourselves in a week 1 playoff matchup when Andrew Berg is selecting to play Nick Clement round 1.
I would love that. We
I
we
would
are
too.
the best rivalry. There is no one even close. We bet something every matchup. It's fun. We bicker, we mean. We are the cream in terms of the matchups for what we wanted for rivalry week.
And we get to play each other twice a year, which is great for me because
Yeah,
next team always
yeah,
is back.
yeah. That's a good point.
Wow, Berg really going out on a limb there.
Yeah,
That hurt him to say.
it did.
Didn't sleep at all last
But
night.
that's what hot takes on Fantasy PD are for.
Hey,
I've got a finishing position one as well, so I'll jump in. I'm going to say that we will have a repeat either winner or loser. So we've only had 2 losers, Shaw and Dan, and we've only had 3 winners, Peter, Shaw, and Dan. I think one of those 3 teams will either win or lose as a repeater. Well, only Pete has a win. Sorry, you don't get. I'm not calling your shot as the toilet bowl winner. I'm calling the shot that it's potentially Shaw or Dan as the loser, or potentially Shaw, Dan, or you as the winner. I think that's the outcome this year. I think it's just more of the same.
I'd love to add to my collection. And I think Dan kind of likes the hot dog costume.
It's a T-shirt. He didn't wear the hat the entire night. He wore it as a
It shouldn't have
T-shirt, which
counted.
is not very embarrassing.
I mean, his real punishment was getting home at 5:30 in the morning. I put in a call to Frontier and said, "Hey, we got a guy who liked the hot dog costume a little too much. About 5'8". He said, "That's everybody we see at this airport." I said, "Slightly angry." He said, "You're gonna have to be more descriptive." Probably wearing temple gear. You have to be more descriptive. He'll have a Jets backpack that's a drawstring. All right, I got it. We'll delay his flight.
Are his socks halfway on? Yep, that's the guy.
All right, Berg, what's next?
Last slide I got,
Oh, baby.
recap of the weekend. So
Did you
Pete,
guys
tell
not
us
have
about
any
your
other
weekend.
takes?
No, I didn't. Did you?
I just was curious. I thought,
Any other takes?
yeah.
Pete
That
told me
was
1
my-
to 2. I picked one.
No, I had my hot take. Do we have to do I have to pay? I don't have a response to Berg's. I think I agree that I think Nick will make the playoffs this year.
Let's see. Oh,
I
I'm
didn't say
loving this
will, I said
picture.
could.
I wish we could zoom in on the picture, specifically Matt, because that is actually a light gray polo. Fun fact.
I didn't recognize Matt Nick until I saw the fanny pack. Now I know which one's him.
My favorite part of the weekend, let's see. My fun tidbit of the weekend is that Dan won't go in the same vicinity of a Michelob Ultra anymore. But the man ate a hot dog, he ate a roasted pork sandwich, pizza, deli sandwich, 2 Philly cheesesteaks all week. Oh, more pizza all weekend long. But Michelob Ultra, dude, that makes his stomach feel weird.
Sad to hear he's off the wagon on that one. I just hope next year that we can have a draft that starts on time. That is my one request moving forward. 11 a.m. push back to 12:48 p.m. was very interesting, and I look forward to an on-time draft next year.
What did you do during that time while you were waiting?
I sat there, talked with Milk and Toy.
Nick, why would you say the draft got delayed?
Ever heard of the gay nightclub? What's it called again? Actually,
I didn't go.
because it was that bad. No, yeah, people went out a little harder that first night. It's all right. It was fun. Sucks that it was ambitious to just keep pushing it back like 10 or 15 minutes when we were waiting on Shaw to get there. We were waiting on everything. You should have just pushed it back an hour and let you guys kind of have your freedom until we were actually ready.
And then for half of them not to even have a list of players. Who's throwing Jefferson the ball this year? Sam Donald. Oh God, no. Give me AJ Brown.
Oh, I also liked the mix of Ubers that we got over this weekend will be one of the greatest all time because we got Elvis Uber, who I really wish would have came into the bar so I could have speared him in the ball pit. I'd pay a lot of money to do that. We've got the guy that just started going reverse on the freeway because he missed his exit. And then me and Berg had a good fun one at the end there where he was a Hawaiian guy, also a Packer fan. Probably should have told him to subscribe to our podcast. He would have been a
Missed
big fan,
opportunity.
but he was a huge Packer fan. He said his fantasy draft went Mahomes, then Jordan Love as the top 2 picks. Now that's a league I need to be a part of.
That's Berg's other league.
Were there any other Ubers that were really good? I feel like those were just the 3 ones that just.
I don't remember most of the Ubers I was in. Elvis impersonator takes the cake though.
Oh, and his cousins and second cousins are WWE wrestlers.
Oh yeah, he's second cousins with Roman Reigns.
Oh my God.
And first cousins with some other brothers that are
Oslo or
in the UFC.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oslo. Yeah,
Wow.
that was a fun one.
Well,
What
that's
was the
nice
highlight
thing.
of your weekend outside of the draft?
What was?
What was the highlight of your weekend outside of the draft?
Mine or Nick's? Mine?
Yours.
Oh, mine. From the weekend. What did I do last weekend? Well, I was in Maine.
You were in Maine.
Saturday morning, got a really good breakfast at a little cafe that their back porch is right on the ocean. It was unbelievable. Great portions, had pancakes, woke up, planned the day out. Whole Bowie family went. I bought breakfast. It was great. That was the highlight of my morning because I said, you know what, I got to be home at 11 a.m. sharp so that I can start this draft. We had time to stay for lunch. What about you, Berg?
I enjoyed seeing all my friends and the Rocky statue.
That was a great video of you guys walking out.
Yeah, there is so much history and so many statues and monuments in Philly. And the only one with the line is from a 90s movie that's not real.
I think isn't that movie from the 70s?
I don't know. I just made up a number. I don't know.
Okay.
What?
It was worth the wait.
I have never seen a Rocky movie, so I'll have to go check it out.
Have you ever been to Philadelphia?
I've never been to Philly.
Well, you can go if you just watch the movie. It's the same experience.
Okay. Probably doesn't
Berg,
sound good, though.
I want Berg to close off the podcast in his best Rocky impression. Give us a little parting. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what to say. I'll just give the classic. Yo, Adrian! It's the best I got.
See you later.
Cut that. That's our new intro.
Good.
All right, little Berg, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate the takes that you gave, and we'll be back with more as the season gets underway in a couple of weeks here.
Bye, guys.
See ya.